Hello and welcome to the latest installment of HFW Industry Insights, where we speak to leading figures across HFW's core sectors about the key issues facing their business and the wider market. Our guest today is Joanne Lau, the Secretary General of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Centre. HKIAC is one of the world's leading dispute resolution organizations, and as Secretary General, Joanne is responsible for its strategy, services, and operations across its offices in Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, and Seoul. Joanne, welcome. Joanne, for those who don't work with arbitral institutions day to day, what is HKIAC's role in the life of an international arbitration?
For those who are less familiar with HKIAC, I'll just start by saying briefly that HKIAC is a world-leading top arbitral institution. So we were established over 40 years ago, so quite a long track record and history. When it comes to the life of an international arbitration, I would say HKIAC is the busiest before the constitution of the tribunal. So there could be initial jurisdictional questions that HKIAC needs to resolve on a prima facie basis. We collect deposits. Very importantly, if parties or co-arbitrators fail to designate arbitrators, we help with the appointment of arbitrators. And during the life of the arbitration, even after the case file is transferred to the arbitral tribunal, HKIAC continues to monitor the case closely, making sure everything runs smoothly, efficiently. When there are applications like challenges to arbitrators, HKIAC may have a role to play. And right until the very end, when there is an award, we don't have a formal award scrutiny process, but we still do a light touch review and help with the release of the award to the parties. But I would say beyond case administration and appointment of arbitrators, I think institutions like HKIAC, we also have a very important role and responsibility in helping with the development of international arbitration. So we do a lot of trainings, organize events. We have a very famous Hong Kong Arbitration Week every year to help with capacity building and just sharing of best practices in dispute resolution.
Thank you. So HKIAC has been expanding its footprint beyond Hong Kong. What does a regional presence really change in practice for users, and where do you see demand growing fastest?
So HKIAC's caseload has always been very international. So looking at our, say, 2025 cases, roughly over 85% of our cases were international in nature with parties from outside of Hong Kong. If it's administered cases, then it's over 90%. And last year, our cases, the parties came from 61 different jurisdictions, so very global, very diverse, very international. For users, I think having an international mindset, international visibility is very important to users, because a lot of times when companies think of international arbitration, it's because their cases would involve multiple jurisdictions. They may be thinking of enforcement in a different country. So having an institution which understands different cultures can assure parties that we are able to understand user needs. And having an institution with an international network and the breadth and depth of knowledge about, say, arbitrators give parties assurance that when it comes to, say, appointment of arbitrators, HKIAC is able to appoint a very good arbitrator, well-suited in handling their cases. In terms of where I see, the particular growth regions, if you look at our 2025 statistics, I would highlight a couple of points. One is, I think Middle East is a region that is growing in activity. So UAE appeared in our top 10 for the third time now. Another area, I think, is Latin America is also gaining a lot of traction. Brazil appeared in our top 10 for the very first time. And Africa, I think that's an entire continent, but that again is a place where we've been seeing more cases and more interest and activity.
So you've mentioned the 2025 case statistics that HKIAC has just released. Tell us a bit more about what changes you've seen over the 40-year history of the HKIAC in relation to those statistics, and a bit more about what the numbers tell you about how the market's changing.
Yeah. I think I touched on just now the geographical and international diversity of cases. I think the other point that I would highlight is we've seen increasing number of cases, but in addition to that, we've also seen a growing value and a growth in complexity of cases. So say, looking at our statistics from last year, close to half of those cases now involve multiple parties and multiple contracts. And in terms of value, last year was a record-breaking year for us. The total amount in dispute was $16.2 billion US dollars. So on average, if you're looking at our administered cases, that's roughly $53 million US dollars per administered case. So that suggests to us that for a lot of these high-value, complex, and perhaps those which involve multiple contracts, commercial parties are increasingly turning to arbitration, including HKIAC arbitration, to resolve them.
The statistics, I think, also point to a growth in newer dispute types and sectors. So what should in-house teams be doing now to stay ahead of emerging risks in relation to disputes?
So for HKIAC, we've been seeing a lot of cryptocurrency, digital assets disputes. So I think that trend will continue. Traditionally, we've handled a lot of corporate disputes like shareholder disputes, post-M&A disputes, joint venture disputes. And in terms of sectors, we've been seeing, say, more activity in the tech space, in life sciences. So there are all these growing sectors. For in-house counsel, I think for a lot of them, before an actual dispute arises, they might not want to think about dispute resolution. But actually, a lot of in-house teams, I think they are thinking ahead and preparing and thinking of it through the lens of risk management, dispute avoidance. So we see a lot of demand from in-house teams and, say, trainings on drafting of dispute resolution clauses, negotiating arbitration clauses. Some of them would start getting external training or educating their internal management team on what to do when a dispute arises, when you are faced with, say, a claim in arbitration, what would likely happen and how can you prepare in advance. And of course, aside from dispute resolution mechanisms, a lot of in-house teams are learning more about, say, risk allocation mechanisms just in negotiating commercial contracts. So these are, I think, all the steps that companies can start doing in anticipation of potential future disputes.
It's 2 years since the HKIAC updated its rules. And I just want to ask, in relation to those, what were those changes designed to meet in terms of users' needs? Has it met them? And in particular, in relation to the powers of arbitrators in emergencies?
Yeah, so we last updated our rules, as you say, in 2024. That wasn't like an overhaul of HKIAC's administered arbitration rules because they were operating really well, but we did make some improvements to further respond to user needs. On emergency powers first, we clarify that emergency arbitrators are able to issue what's known as interim orders pending their emergency arbitrator decision. So that is designed to make sure that if a party needs immediate urgent relief, an emergency arbitrator is able to grant that without affecting their jurisdiction. Under the HKIAC rules, the emergency arbitrator then needs to issue their decision within 14 days. And if you look at our statistics, actually on average last year, emergency arbitrators are able to issue it within, on average, 12.1 days. And on emergency powers, HKIAC also needs to appoint an emergency arbitrator within 24 hours. And on average, we're able to do that roughly around 15 hours. So that is really to address the user's need for urgent relief in certain situations. More broadly, looking at our 2024 rules, I would highlight maybe a couple of points. One is that there has been a lot of discussion in international arbitration about diversity. So HKIAC rules, we added a new provision on diversity, encouraging parties and co-arbitrators when they designate arbitrators that they also take into account considerations of diversity. So HKIAC has been quite forward-thinking in that regard. And then secondly, efficiency. I think that is an area where users constantly wish to see more from international arbitration, things moving more quickly, more cost efficiently. So in our 2024 rules, we provided more stringent time limits as to when tribunals should close proceedings and issue their awards. And it also provides power for HKIAC to take into account considerations of efficiency and integrity of proceedings when, say, confirming arbitrators. So I would say since the 2024 rules have come into effect, they have been very well received by users. And I think people were very pleased to see that HKIAC is responding to latest market developments and user demands.
So we're going to finish with some quick-fire questions. You spent more than a decade in private practice before you joined the HKIAC. So what's surprised you most about institutional leadership, and what do you miss in terms of private practice?
I think for an arbitral institution and being in a leadership role, it's very entrepreneurial. I think a lot more entrepreneurial than I expect, because I guess unlike private practice, you don't immediately see the result of your efforts. You're trying to predict the future. What you do today may have an impact on your caseload, case trends in 5 to 10 years' time. But at an institution, you get a lot of autonomy, and you have a very energetic team who can really respond to what your future predictions are. You get to go to different markets to talk about arbitration. You engage with different stakeholders. You're not just looking at large cases, large companies. You're looking at what users need in small cases all the way to the most complex cases. You design new events, new trainings to help people understand international arbitration. So there's a lot that you can do, and when you see results and positive feedback, that gives me and the whole team a huge sense of satisfaction. So that entrepreneurial spirit is what I find, very, very rewarding. Comparing it to private practice, I think there are certainly things that one would get from private practice. Say, for example, if you're preparing for a large hearing, preparing for a big case, working with your whole team late into the night, working on those complicated issues, you get that rush of adrenaline. And even though, for people who are in the moment, that would be tough, but actually looking back, those were very satisfying as well. And sometimes I do miss that rush of adrenaline.
What do you think is the most common misconception that you hear about institutional arbitration?
I wouldn't say it's a misperception, misconception per se, but I think for users, what they often see is the interface between the institutions and with the users and with the council. So they would receive letters from the institution, questions from the institutions in the process of administering their cases. But what users sometimes don't necessarily see or appreciate is that the institution also has a role to play and acts as an interface between the Secretariat and our standing committees. And by that, for HKIAC, I'm referring to our appointments committee and our proceedings committee, which are not consisting of members from the Secretariat, but they are external senior practitioners from the bar, solicitors, in-house counsel. So the institution also plays an important role in preparing legal analysis, running it past our proceedings committee and appointments committee for their comments and approval. So that side of the work of the Secretariat. It's not always known to the users, but in fact, it's very crucial to how HKIAC maintain its quality in case management.
So when you're not busy running HKIAC, what's your preferred way to switch off?
So Hong Kong is a very hilly place. So I do go on hikes when the weather permits. So that's one way. I like reading. I also really enjoy puzzles and Legos. So when I find time, I do try to do some of those.
And your number one recommendation to a visitor to Hong Kong?
Number one hiking destination, maybe Dragon's Back, I would say. That's often the introductory hike for those first time to Hong Kong and want to experience the nature of Hong Kong.
Joanne, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much.